Chorus is there. Okay.
Everything?
I don't know who's, I do not have anyone to give an invocation. I asked Liz and she. Here you go.
Thank you.
We're taking a minute to get organized here, get the packets out. The Topeka City Council meeting will come to order. Please stand as you are able and give your attention to Councilman de la Isla for the invocation. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor Wolgass. If we could all bow our heads and pray. Heavenly Lord Jesus, thank you so much for a new year. Father, I also want to say thank you for the wonderful council members that have given their life to serve the city, and for the wonderful people that we have that are coming off of the council. Lord God, just be with them, bless them, give them guidance, and give them rest for all the many years that they have served our community. Father, as we come to meet tonight, we come to you asking for wisdom so that we can go ahead and exercise the laws that we have in front of us. Lord God, bless our community, bless our TPD officers, our fire department, and all of our staff. And most importantly, bless all of our citizens, Lord. It is in your name that I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There are no proclamations or presentations, so we will continue with the roll call.
Mayor Wolgass.
Here.
Council members Hiller. Here. Clear. Here. Ortiz. Here. Emerson.
Here.
De La Isla.
Here.
Jensen.
Present.
Schwartz. Here. Cohen.
Here.
And Harmon.
There is a one change on the agenda, and I recognize Councilwoman Clear.
I'd like to request that we move the social services contracted services grant allocations from non-action to action, in part because our next meeting is going to be a lot of new people, and if we talk about it and discuss it all tonight, we're going to have to talk about it and discuss it all next week to get them up to par. So I would request that be moved.
Unless there is objection from the council members, the move will be made. Councilman Hiller?
Thank you, Mayor. I thought I do have some questions, so hopefully there'll be time, even if.
Well, I think, yeah, we'll have general action on it and discussion.
I thought we had time.
We have time, I think, on this agenda. No action, all right. And there are no other additions or deletions to the agenda, and there is no executive session. So we will continue then with the appointments.
A is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Corliss Lawson to the Topeka Planning Commission for a term ending September 30, 2021.
That is the appointment for this evening. Your pleasure. Deputy Mayor Cohen moves to approve, and Councilwoman Ortiz seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Opposed vote no.
We have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the appointment is approved. I'd like to introduce to you Carlos Lawson, if you would stand. Carlos is a background, is an attorney from Vanderbilt University, and is now in Kansas and working as a chief litigation person for the Department of Children and Families. Thank you very much. That's right. I'm sorry. You went to Washburn, and then you went to Vanderbilt. So glad to have you back. Glad to have you here. Thank you for your service.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Is this Corliss Scroggins, right? Yeah. More people would know her by this.
Corliss Scroggins.
Yeah, I'm looking
Yes,
at her
right.
like, hey, yeah.
You know her. Thank you. Next item, the consent agenda.
A is denial of a tort claim submitted by Jordan Mullins on behalf of Complete Nutrition seeking $100,000 to compensate for lost revenues allegedly attributed to construction at 21st and Wanamaker. B is denial of a tort claim appeal submitted by Charles Kozad in the amount of $125 for alleged damages to his vehicle from hitting a pothole. C is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Brent Trout allowing and approving city expenditures for the period of October 28, 2017 through December 1, 2017, and enumerating said expenditures therein. And there are no applications.
Okay, that is the consent agenda. There's no discussion. Your pleasure. Councilman De La Isla moves to approve. Councilman Emerson seconds. All those in favor vote yes. Opposed vote no.
We have 10 yes.
10 having voted yes, the consent agenda is approved as read. Proceed to the action items. First is an ordinance.
A is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Brent Trout, amending the district map referred to and made a part of the zoning ordinance by Section 1850-050 of the Topeka Municipal Code by providing for certain changes in zoning on property located at the northeast corner of Southwest Westport Drive and Southwest 22nd Terrace from O&I2 Office and Institutional District to PUD Plan Unit Development for O&I2 Office and Institutional Use Group plus self-service laundry use.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Governing body, the Planning Commission reconsidered this item and has brought it back to the City Council for consideration. I'd like to invite Bill Finder forward to discuss the item.
Mr. Finder.
Thank you. Good evening and Happy New Year. As you remember, on December 5th, you had heard this item and had remanded it back to the Planning Commission mainly for two reasons. One was reconsideration to look at the traffic impacts that this operation would have in the area, and then also on the operational hours. We had not a public hearing, but we did have a meeting on December 18th with the Planning Commission. We gave out distributed courtesy notices to the area. We heard from the applicant again on those two issues. We heard from 5 residents on those issues as well. And most of the concerns by the residents were voiced on the operations of the business for 24 hours. Mainly we heard that some people would not have bought their condos or residences there if they knew that was going to be there, had property value concerns. It's a secluded area, and then the busiest nights would be on the weekends when the residents would feel that most things should be dying down. So those are some of the comments that are in the minutes. In terms of the first issue, traffic, staff's assessment is that traffic is really not an issue. The impact would be negligible. We provided a statement from the city traffic engineer, Terry Coder, to kind of supplement that analysis that had been done. Some access had already been eliminated out there that fronted 22nd Terrace, so that helped with those impacts on the residences. But overall, the Planning Commission agreed there are no other issues. They did not make any other recommendations to change anything about the traffic or any impacts that it may have. In regards to the second issue, operational hours, as you remember, the Planning Commission recommended a 24-hour operation due to expressed concerns that are out there already about such an operation being compatible with the residential and zoning expectations for the area. Staff had recommended a recommendation of 16-hour operation. We presented that back to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission, and by the way, that was, as we explained to the Planning Commission, that was really consistent with their other conditions, which they had adopted based on staff's recommendation. The use itself is kind of had the theme of a commercial use wrapped in an office package, and so many of our conditions, such from the building design to the hours to the signage to the landscaping to the uses allowed, there, just office and only a laundromat in addition. Those all were to minimize that impact in that transitional area of a commercial use. So that being said, the Planning Commission, though, again, adopted its original recommendation back to you, which did support a 24-hour operation. Several of the reasons are in the minutes, and summarizing some of those reasons. There is a requirement for a staff attendant at the business to address any safety concerns. The need for flexible hours for shift workers. Building orientation was changed, and so that ended up moving the noise impacts further away from the residents. That was something that we had worked with them on to redesign the building, so that was important to note. And then also, there are other potential uses allowed in the ONI 2 district currently, such as a gym or health clinic that are already allowed to be open 24 hours or no restrictions, therefore. Therefore, they supported their original recommendation back to you by a vote of 5-2. And I think those are elaborated on in the minutes in your packet. And if I can answer any question, I'd be happy to at this point.
Are there questions? Further discussion. Deputy Mayor Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. The first time, or first couple times when this came, was it always 5-2?
Councilman Cohen, the first recommendation was 6-0, and then this time it was 5-2.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Councilman Harmon.
Thank you, Your Honor. Bill, the staff's recommendation was for less than 24-hour operation, I believe. See references in the staff report to both 16 hours and 18 hours. What was the staff's rationale in making that recommendation as opposed to a 24-hour operation?
Councilman Harmon, as noted, we were trying to cloak this commercial use in an office type of a package. That being said, looking at other types of normal commercial type uses, you have a 10 o'clock, 6 to 10 o'clock hours. I guess I should say in normal laundromat, other laundromat uses, and that was a normal expectation, I guess, for that type of a business. And so we arrived at a 16-hour recommendation. It was further commented on by the Planning Commission that if they were to adopt some limitations on hours, we probably should adopt something that is hour-specific. So there's a limitation there as to whether it's 6 to 10 or 6 to 11 or something to that effect.
Thank you.
Other
Thank you, Your Honor.
discussion? Comments? Councilman Jensen.
Thank you. Well, so I'll propose an amendment to modify the hours to 16 hours from 6 to 10. You know, the comparables, a clinic that's open 24 hours a day often is going to have quite a large staff. Even a gym that's open 24 hours a day will have more than, you know, one attendant there. So I don't think it's a fair comparison to say other similar type businesses. The safety risks when you only have a single attendant there, which I fully expect there would be at an overnight laundromat. I just can't compare that to a 24-hour medical clinic. So I could not support a 24-hour operation, but I could support amending it at this level to the 16 hours.
Okay, do you have a place where that would be inserted in the ordinance?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah,
He also proposed a time, so
yeah, I'm
I
just,
think that was in his recommendation.
Yes, absolutely, the time specific. And it would be what Mr. Finder recommended.
probably in section 2, if that's, Or there could be a new section, or maybe,
Do Section 3 and then renumber everything else. And could you restate the hours that you were talking about, Councilmember Jensen?
Sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Finder, but the initial recommendation was 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., is that correct?
That would be 16 hours, so that would be, yes,
Yeah,
the minimum.
so that would be my amendment, is to approve the PUD with the exception of the 24 hours, and they would be allowed to operate from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
It's either the hours of operation shall be limited
let's see if we get this in.
to 10 p.m. or just say the hours of operation.
Yeah, it has to be on the PUD.
Is there a second to his motion? And we'll get it clarified here. Well, all right. Well, he made it, but...
Okay,
all
so, oh, I'm sorry.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
right. Okay, we have a second.
So in Section 2, it would state, "The Aqua Blast Self-Service Laundry Planned Unit Development Master Plan shall be recorded, comma, as amended, comma, with the Shawnee County Register of Deeds in accordance with Section 18.190.060B of the Topeka Municipal Code. Following the recording of the PUD master plan and prior to building permit and/or land development on the site, site development plan shall be submitted for review and administrative approval by the planning director. The hours of operation shall be 6 a.m. to 10 o'clock p.m.
Okay. Okay,
Perhaps it should say not to exceed, because we don't want to
Shall
force
be
them to
limited
be...
to 6, oh,
Well, I don't want
not
to
to
force them
exceed.
to be open that long if they don't want to, but I don't want them to be open beyond that.
Shall be limited.
Well,
to-
but if, yeah, exactly, because
Shall be
otherwise,
limited to 6 a.m. to 10 o'clock p.m.
that works.
okay. And that you second.
Well, there isn't an emotion yet.
Oh, I
There's the-
thought you moved it.
I move to amend, or
Okay.
I intend to move to amend once there's a motion to approve.
Okay, I'm sorry. We have an amendment before us. And we have an amendment and a second, but there hasn't been a motion to approve.
Correct.
So we need to go back one step.
Motion to approve?
Councilman Emerson moves to approve the ordinance. Councilman Hiller seconds. Now we have a motion to an amend.
Yes, so I will move to amend the PUD as discussed.
And Councilwoman Ortiz seconds the amendment. We have now discussion on the amendment. Councilwoman Claire,
Where'd you go, Bill?
please.
There you go. Can you guess, or do you know why they wanted the 24 hours as opposed to these hours, in addition to the shift workers? Is there a reason?
You're speaking about the applicant or the planning commission? Applicant. I believe, yeah, they did submit in writing reasoning. Didn't go a whole lot into the business model, but that's been spoken to, that they have several of these in Wichita that they have open for 24 hours. They use that time at night to clean and repair machines and do some maintenance work, so they keep it open. So and they did provide, and it's in the packet, some of the trip information, the expected trips between certain hours, I think. So there is some limited traffic from 11 to 6 in the morning that they provided, anywhere from 6 to 8 trips a night. So I think it's, those were the stated reasoning. It's part of the business model. They use it to clean.
Okay. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess we'll go around and declare our ex parte at some point.
Well,
But
yeah, we do that when we vote
all
on the
of
ordinance.
us, got the material from the planning commission, and I haven't synced it up to see if the calls and letters, I've had a letter, I think we all have, from the developer, as well as from neighbors that are proponents as well as opponents. And so I've done the best that I could to process that. Some of the proponents say, listen, they've really worked it out, and it has worked well in Wichita with a 24-hour basis, and the model is tested and works well. Why would we change that in any way? If we didn't do this, we could end up with laser tag or who knows what that would attract all kinds of folks. With the current zoning, they wouldn't have to do anything. This looks like a pretty good plan. There are residents nearby that say they would want to use it. And I don't know how many people have ever been either the college student or the adult with kids, but about 10 o'clock's when I started doing the dishes and the laundry in those years. And so I can support having the laundromat either way, but I'm inclined to support my primary support would be for the developer's model. And again, I was comforted to hear the Planning Commission's review of it a second time, as well as to hear from proponents that live nearby. So,
Okay. Other discussion? Councilman Jensen?
Thank you. I haven't received a single email other than from the developer who supports the 24-hour operation. They seem fairly interested in having it, as opposed to some of those other amenities as you discussed, but I haven't received any communications for somebody who wants it to be open 24 hours a day.
There was a letter in the packet from someone who lived in the apartments or the condos next across the street.
Oh, okay.
Said
It wasn't
that
in
it's,
the emails I've been.
no, it's in the packet,
Ah,
the
okay.
information.
So that would be one, and I've received numerous against.
Other discussion? Okay, ready for, we have amendment restricting the hours from 10 until 6, prohibiting, from 6 till 10, the other way. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the amendment, vote yes. Opposed, vote no.
Ms. Hiller? I'm sorry. Yeah, I heard it. We have 6 voting yes, 4 voting no. It has approved. We've
Okay.
got Mayor Walgass, Councilmembers Hiller, Clear, and Schwartz voting no.
Okay, 6 having voted yes, the amendment is approved. So we're now considering the motion as amended. Is there any further discussion on it as amended? And then we will have the ex parte when we're through with our discussion. Councilman Jensen? Okay, we'll do ex parte, start with Councilman Hiller.
I don't have anything to add.
But you've already said, clear.
I received emails from both pro and opponents.
Yes. Okay, Councilman Ortiz?
I received emails and some letters from proponents and opponents.
Okay, and similarly for me.
I received emails on both sides of the issue.
I received emails and communications in writing from both sides.
Emails.
Okay.
Emails and phone calls
Okay,
from both sides.
and it's in Mr. Harmon's district.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is going to take a minute. I received ex parte communications in terms of both emails and telephone calls. Notwithstanding the receipt of those ex parte communications, I believe I am able to fairly and objectively consider the application based only upon the evidence provided in the record. And the record before me is the ordinance, staff report of December 18th, 2017, a supplemental testimony of December 18th, 2017, traffic analysis, and the Ferris letter of December 16th, 2017, the aerial map, the zoning map, Planning Commission meeting minutes of December 18th, 2017, as well as the Planning Commission meeting minutes of September 18th, 2017, the Aqua Blast PUD master plan, the Aqua Blast PUD master plan, building elevations, and the neighborhood information meeting summary and sign-in sheet. So that is what in addition to the factors outlined by the Kansas Supreme Court in the so-called Golden decision, that is the basis upon which I'll make my decision and my vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know we all agree in general with those same principles.
Let him go first.
Based on that, we are ready to vote. We have a motion as amended before us. Councilman Hiller?
I have a question, and it
Yeah.
relates to the amendment. Is the developer here?
Well, he couldn't speak because we're, as a quasi judicial body, public, and this is not a public hearing.
Thank you. I
So
just wondered if it was going to go
I
forward. So if he
agree.
decides not to go forward with it with the time limitation, it'll either die or we'll get it back?
Yeah. I don't know that that's known.
What happens if?
Well, I don't know that
I
that.
believe it would die in this particular
Oh.
site based on approval for the period of time that it would require before it could go back before the planning commission for consideration again.
You'd have to refile.
Right, and at that point then, or you would have to look for a different location in order to do this type of business, for it to be reconsidered.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I misunderstood your question. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion before us as amended. Please vote yes to approve, no to disapprove.
We have 10 yes.
10 having voted yes, the ordinance is approved as amended. We now go to new item B under action items.
B is approval regarding, an item regarding the approval of the 2019 social services and contracted
I go to
services
you.
allocations in the amount of $796,233.
And this issue is a recommendation from the, I don't see on here, the Economic and Policy Committee. And I yield to the chair, Councilwoman Claire.
Okay, you have before you the packet that has been given out the last few years. And what we have tried to do this year, the committee, which was myself, Councilmember Emerson, and Mayor-elect De La Isla, we have tried to stabilize the funding levels so some agencies would get out of being stuck and just stuck in, because there was a reduction in funds in 15. This is a funding formula that would allow agencies to apply for up to $25,000. They would still have their scoring would be inserted into their funding formula. There'd be no new agencies that could apply unless there was funds available after the established agencies had already been granted. The exception to the rule is the Shawnee County Medical Society would be grandfathered in at the $50,000, and Positive Connections would be grandfathered in at $35,000. Now, in addition to that, we had contracted services that are contracts. They do not have to go through the grant process. So it was decided to get them out of the grant process, so to get them back over to the agencies that they're in contract with. So Safe Streets, KCSL, and the YWCA Center for Safety and Empowerment would be moved back to Topeka Police Department. That way they can look at their contracts, they can make changes to the contracts, they could deal with that. However, these agencies would still be required to justify how they are spending their funding, and that would be looked at by staff. HCCI, Landlord and Tenant Counseling, would be moved to the Department of Neighborhood Relations, and JAAA, Local Match, would be moved down to the Social Service Grant Pool. This is a large amount of money, but from what I've heard from this council in the last years, we all like to help our agencies and our people. So you know, this isn't setting it in the grant, because we're not there yet. This is just approving the funding formula and what it would amount to. With that,
All right.
any questions? And I think Sasha's here if you have questions.
Since it's an action item, would you want to move for approval of the
Oh, so,
recommendation?
yes. So I would move for approval of what I just said.
All right. Is there a second? Councilman Jensen seconds. Now we're open for discussion on it. I know Councilwoman Hiller indicated she had some.
I do, thank you.
Expertise.
And thank you. I was able to ask some of my questions a little bit earlier with Chairperson Clear, and I appreciated that too. I wanted to make sure that this body had the institutional history on this before we vote. I was a little skeptical about the changes at first. I think this could work, but I think there are some details that may be missing. And if I may, I'll just kind of go through it. The original idea, there was a council, 8 years ago, that wanted to, they had tried citizen review groups, they tried staff review. The citizens really didn't know a lot about the services or about management. The staff was uncomfortable being the coaches and the reviewers and the people that would score and make the grant recommendations. And so there was a sense on the council that they wanted a council committee to do this. And they also wanted to get a structure so that the agencies were really accountable. Part of the issue with the grants that had been parked in some different departments with their line items had been there really wasn't anybody who was asking them up front and was really monitoring product. And so there was a sense that having them all in one joint process, even if some were tied to different departments or certain activities, hence the contracted services end, would still make sure that the process of making the grants was rigorous and that the oversight was rigorous and done by staff who was familiar with that process and doing them all. So when I saw that there was a move to take the three agencies and put them back in the police department and take HCCI, which had grown and gotten its own line item, and put it in neighborhood relations, I could see the rationale for it, but I was concerned about whether that rigorous review and kind of arm's length review of both the applications as well as performance would be lost. So one of the questions I had, and I'm not sure whether you touched on it, would be whether those agencies that were contracted service would still be required to go through the application process as the others would, and whether they would be reviewed by the team or simply in the departments.
The department would have the ability to either sign another contract with the agency or not.
Okay.
And yes, as I stated, they would still be required to submit their quarterly. Is that your question? The quarterly, and
They would
staff would review.
They would do reports, but there would not be the same rigorous outcomes-based requirement for them to be funded in the first place anymore.
I don't know if they have that. Sasha, do they have that now, Ms. Hahn?
Good evening. So the contracted services would still be required to submit quarterly outcomes and outputs reports as they are currently required to, as well as the quarterly financial reports. Those would be reviewed by staff, but then the ECD, we hadn't gotten to that part of the conversation yet. They would determine, do they want to see that quarterly, semi-annually, annually? So that information would be given to ECD. I've had a conversation with your interim police chief about the contracts for the three agencies that would be moved back to TPD, and he and his administrative staff are fully in favor of the ability to review the contracts that are currently in place and have input into what services are provided. Additionally, I would say Neighborhood Relations is excited about the opportunity to be able to have more direct input into what services HCCI is providing to us at this point.
Thank you. I wondered too then, if we're breaking them out of the social service pool, if you will, I see that it is set up this year with the contracted city services, and that's, I think, 100% general fund money. But next year, would that 211,000 just be absorbed into those departmental budgets and disappear from this process then?
Yes.
Okay. So this is kind of a placeholder then in the report this year, but it would just disappear. And your staff would simply do
Yes.
the review of progress.
The 211 that is currently dedicated to those contracted services, which, I'm sorry, you'd have to back out the amount for JAAA, that would go down into the grant pool. And then the dollar amounts attached to those contracts for HCCI, KCSL, Safe Streets, and YWCA, Center for Safety and Empowerment, those amounts would just move into departmental budgets in 19.
And so actually, if we, I guess where I'm going with this is I think we need to take it out because we haven't done the budget for 2019. Those departments, we would be in effect loosening up that much money right now. If those departments chose to fund more or less or do those services differently, it really isn't part of what we're doing here at that point.
I would, of course, defer to the budget director and the city manager, but if you're asking my opinion, the dollars should be earmarked because at this point, that is the funding level for the services that are provided. And whether or not we would be able to negotiate a higher or lower dollar amount, I can't predict at this point.
That's what I was thinking, because it would really be up to the departments. So if we left it here this year, it would disappear by next year through the.
Which would be the 20 cycle.
Correct.
So yes.
Okay. Also, one of the other goals at first was, one of the things that had been happening was that the agencies were lobbying the whole council, and they were coming and doing their hearings as part of the budget process. And then if there were disagreements, they were coming back to appeal or to approach different council members to advocate for a little more money for them because they'd been cut or whatever. This was steady at that time. And so the idea was to set up a process where the council had approved the whole process. So the council had approved the priorities and the allocations, but also had approved the process and had approved the score sheets so that there was no reason for anybody to come back and try and appeal to the council, that we really had delegated it fully into that committee. And so I said something about this when we didn't get those other pieces last year. I have had a suggestion to change on the scoring. I think we ask them for budgets every year, but we don't have an element in the scoring where we score the budget, or whether they're making appropriate attempts to raise money from elsewhere. That could probably wait until next year to be addressed at this point. Any changing in the scoring. But I would like to see the whole package go through. If there's not time to have that package back to pass because people want to pass it tonight, I sure hope we would have the whole package next year when this process occurs.
Councilwoman Claire.
I think because there weren't any changes, there wasn't a reason to present it again because it already had been approved. So there's no reason to approve it again. I also have the internal calendar document that you asked for, but this is internal just for staff. So there's not a reason for us to approve this, but I have it for everybody. And I think what you're suggesting, wouldn't that be done at the committee level, not at this level?
I'll tell you why it came to the council, because it did come to the full council the first 3 or 4 years of the process, was to make the system totally transparent, as I understood it, and so that everybody on the council had participated in setting those standards and agreeing on how the scoring would be done, And we also had, we've gone back and forth a little bit, but at this point, use a team of experts, outside experts. Are you planning to do that again? So that the council knew. Because then when people come to us and they say, well, how does it work? Or I'm not happy, we were all fully knowledgeable and had voted on it. So having us try and take an appeal, I felt like that really strengthened it. And Councilwoman and I talked today, and she said, well, some time has passed, and so people don't know those horror stories. I said, I know.
Councilwoman De Lisla. Oh, I'm sorry, I think Councilwoman Ortiz was earlier, and then Councilwoman De Lisla.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I never liked the process when it went to committee. I'm just going to be honest with you. I liked it when the whole council got to listen to it, because it not only, it educated all of us on what these social services do. And even though they still don't come to us, and I mean, we still hear from all of them, all the social services. And so I always like that process, and I don't like, you know, I can't support this, and I applaud you, Sandra, but I think it's important. This is one of the jobs that we're commanded to do with our budget, and that's to look at our social services. And you know, when it goes to committee, you know, not everybody's able to make it or whatever, and I surely don't like it going to staff. I don't like that. I think it's our duty. I think we need to look at all of the packets, and I enjoyed looking at all the packets to see who's asking for what and blah, 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 if they're duplicated and not. So I won't support this, because I would like to see us get back to that. It probably won't. It'll probably stay in committee. But because they were just people that just felt like we didn't have the time or didn't want to make time, that's how I look at it, to go over that. But that was a part of our budget process. And I never liked the point of, what about the new people? I've always asked that. The new people coming in, that point system, that they're not going to get any money, you know? I think this is our job, and that's just me, 12 years in, me speaking. Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
do you want to respond to that?
Yes.
first?
How is this different than all the other committees then? Because we don't have every committee, we don't do what every committee is assigned to do. Why would we do what this committee is assigned to do and not maybe what TGT? Why don't we look at all that?
Well, I think this entails all of our districts. I mean, and TGT does in a way, that's how I've always looked at it. But again, I think it educates when we have those packets and we see what they're applying for, you know? And I think it's important that we all make a decision on that, and not just a committee and then they bring it to us. That's just how I look at it. You know, we've had things that have fallen off, that have never come back. You know, I agree with the point system to a point, but what about the new guy that's coming in? What about that?
We have this much money. We can't have our old guys
I understand
and this
that.
many new guys.
I understand
So we
that.
have to stop somewhere.
I understand that.
That's why there is the new people coming in can get the money if our old people hasn't taken all the money that we have been given. I mean, that's just the reality. We only have so much money.
But there's never any money for the new guy.
Oh, yeah, there's always been money for new guys.
I disagree.
Okay, Councilwoman De Lisla.
Thank you, Mayor Wolgass. We've been doing this for several years. I recall being elected in 2013, and we started this process of the Economic and Community Development Committee. And there has been some trepidation. And I think that the reason that we started this committee was, it wasn't so much that we did not want the body of the council to make the determination on which organizations were getting the funds. The concern was that many organizations were receiving funds that were really not meeting muster, period. So at the point in time that the items get sent to committee, it was never meant to be a staff duty, because the council is very much involved, very much involved. That's why we have the committee structure. The committee evaluates how organizations are going to be funded. The first year, I remember, we worked on ensuring that we looked at how much money we were giving and which organizations were receiving it, so that we made sure that many organizations that were very worthy organizations didn't lose the ability to request those funds. And the biggest challenge that I've had is that we wanted to do this in addition to the fact that there were organizations that were not doing what they were supposed to, because we were, as a body, sitting here, hearing impassionate discourse with regards to organizations that were not doing what they were doing, but because they were talking and reaching out to different council members, they were lobbying for the funds. In addition to that, we were giving money that was not sufficient to really create an impact, because if you take into account how much reporting you have to do, giving an organization $5,000 is almost an insult. I'm speaking from the experience of being an executive director, and I'm certain that Councilwoman Schwartz and Councilwoman Hillard that have done grants and everything can say the same thing. I am speaking in strong support of the committee process, and most importantly, to remind ourselves the fact that we entrusted the committee with a process. And if we're saying on one side that we are concerned that we don't want to be lobbied about not following a process, then it doesn't make any sense to have the committee do all the work and then have the council reevaluate. So I think that the bigger question is, number one, and I think that I addressed this last year when we were talking about the budget, are we really doing ourselves a favor in allocating the funds to organizations that have received the grants in the past? Or do we need to really take a look as a body at where we want our priorities or our funding to go to, and then start establishing funding mechanisms with the committee in that fashion? But it seems that, like, the big question that this body has had when the allocations come back is, are we really investing the money where we really want it to go? And I may not have the root question clear, but my concern is that rather than asking the question of going line by line by line, but what we have here that the committee did, then the question really should be, is the feeling of discontent that we feel as a body, or is there a feeling that we should be allocating our funds in different places, and then give the committee instruction on how to operate? But the process has been the same process. It has been working very well. We do have experts supporting the organizations. I think that we really have to ask what the question behind the question is. Are we really funding the places that, as a body, we feel that the money should be going towards?
And Councilman Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, as the city government, we're entrusted to make our society, our little society of Topeka, run. So, at the very bottom level of society, if things aren't handled by an organization or a private company, they fall to the government to handle. So, a lot of these services, basically, we would be responsible for, because an organization isn't able to handle that, or a private company can't do it in a cost-effective manner. And so that falls to the government to do. So my understanding of this process, from having been on the committee, is that these organizations come to us and say, hey, that thing you're responsible for as the government of our community, I can do that cheaper, better, faster, stronger if you pay me to do that. And so, a lot of these organizations do fantastic work. Some of the responsibilities they have are technically the responsibility of the county. The county is in charge of the health department, but they're coming to the city for funding in some cases and not the county. Not that I don't believe that it's worthwhile to fund, but is that something where we as the city should be partnering with the county to say, you know what, together we're going to combine our funds for a specific purpose and give you enough to create a measurable impact, as opposed to a small amount here, a small amount there. When you talk about how you have to do reporting for every single grant you get, our organizations in this town waste thousands of man and woman hours doing reporting for all the various agencies that give them money. So I applaud this effort to begin to sort of unravel this incredibly complex attempt we've made at leveling the playing field. And I do agree, a lot of the work that was put into that absolutely was intended to make the process fair and more equitable. But we've tried to do a one-size-fits-all solution to an infinitely complex problem, and I'm afraid in doing so we've convoluted a lot of it. So I absolutely like pulling a number of these things out and giving them back to the police department. They're responsible for accomplishing specific tasks in the community, and if they want to outsource some of that stuff to a private organization that can do it cheaper, faster, better, stronger, absolutely. And it should be their responsibility to ensure that that organization is living up to that responsibility, and if not, it's time to get a new contractor. I mean, it's the same way when you look at Cox or AT&T. If they're not delivering the entertainment you want, you're going to fire them as your vendor and go get a different one. The police department should absolutely have that authority over people that work on things that they have responsibility for. It's our job as the council to hold those departments responsible for maintaining and executing that vision of our community. So yeah, if we want the police department to be responsible for making sure the streets are clean and they want to farm that out to keep America beautiful, that's great. It's on the police department to ensure that gets done right, and they have to answer to us. Well, technically, the city manager then answers to us, but, we'll just make it more complex. Thank you for your work. I wholeheartedly support this, and I think this is a great step in getting to what I think everybody really ultimately wants, is an organized process.
Councilman Schwartz.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sorry, I'm getting a sinus infection. I support the committee process, and I can remember back in 2013 when we got this huge humongous book, and we listened for, I don't know how long those council meetings were. But I think the committee process works, and I'll tell you how it works this year. When the committee was working this, I had several calls from the Shawnee County Medical Society Project Health Access, which is a very important thing in this community. And I had failed as the mayor's appointment on this committee to inform people as to what this really was. And this is doctors volunteering their time at the hospitals, and then this pays for the prescriptions. Now, they're not going to volunteer their time if they can't, take care of the problem. So I really do appreciate the committee process, and I think the committee has done an outstanding job. And I think Mayor-elect De La Isla was the one that came up with this idea that we take it to the committee process, and that is how TGT works. So yes, I support this. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Hiller.
Thank you. I don't want my comments to have been misunderstood, because I think that taking it to the committee was the solution that we came up with, and I think it is working. And this process right here is a chance for the council once a year to say, well, we want to add money for a little more, or we want to go ahead and change the formula a little bit to take more new agencies on this year. This particular committee's proposal was this one that we have in front of us. So this process annually lets the council do that. My concern was that the politics, which were being played before, as people have now referenced, the idea was to by letting the committee do it, but having the council fully informed and supportive of exactly how the committee was going to make the allocations, not to do it for them, but what that process was going to be, allowed people, I watched it happen, allowed people on the council to let go of it and say, we set some standards, the committee has gone through the process, you have a chance to appeal internally, which we added, the second year, so that they didn't come to the council for an appeal. And that structure that we've kind of steadily built has worked. So my point was simply, if we could bring all the pieces forward every year, you all knew that you weren't changing anything, but we didn't. And the public didn't. And so being able to say we're bringing forward exactly what we had last year in terms of how the process would go, and we're bringing forward exactly what we had in terms of the scoring and how we're going to evaluate these, would just reassure all of us that that's the way it was going to be, or if there was going to be a change, we would know. That was really my point.
Okay. Other discussion. We have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation from the committee. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes, opposed vote no.
We have 9 yes, Ms. Ortiz voting no.
9 having voted yes, the grant allocations process is approved. That completes the action items for this evening. We go then to the announcements. The first item is the preliminary agenda for next week.
On the January 8th meeting, we will have the swearing-in ceremony for the new governing body members. We have no proclamations. The consent agenda will include minutes from the regular meeting and the special meeting. We have a resolution on the 2018 legislative agenda and a discussion on the 2015 International Building Code, 2015 Life Safety Code, and 2015 International Fire Code.
Okay, that's the agenda for next week. We will now go to the service recognition ceremony. Process here.
See you, Mayor.
Take care. We're going to go in reverse order from what's printed on the agenda, so I'll ask Councilman Harmon to come up and join me. And Councilman Harmon, 12 years, and I checked with the city clerk, and that's approximately 475 meetings. I know you remember them exactly, which vote, how you voted on every one. The other aspect with Councilman Harmon is he was on the council when I was considering running. 2008, we had coffee a couple times, and he didn't discourage me, so I ran, and whatever goes on after that. Something important about Councilman Harmon is the extent to which he provides a legal process for us, as we saw earlier this evening, but that's important. And he makes sure that we have done things properly, we take the right steps, we get the discussion appropriate and legal, and that's important. And so I appreciate that, and on behalf of the city, we... Presented to, I was going to, it says, and during our first term, my first term, you were deputy mayor, and Mayor Bunton had pneumonia, as he was in the hospital, very ill. And you were more than a deputy mayor, you were practically an acting mayor for about 6 weeks. So that was very important, and the important part that you did. So on behalf of the city, thank you for your service, and you have an opportunity.
Wow. Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you for those very kind remarks. If I can add on a little bit what he said about, a little over 4 years ago, we would have coffee on a somewhat regular basis, and we would say, okay, which one of us is going to run for mayor? You do it. No, you do it. No, you do it. Well, if you don't run, I'll run. So we kind of went this back and forth, and you won that debate, and you've been a wonderful mayor, Larry. You really have been. You helped further solidify the transition to a city manager form of government, and with your service, and it's greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you. Now there. Elaine served one term, and she is very passionate about some things, one of which is not smoking. And for the vapor and the 21-year age. Secondly, she has done a fantastic job chairing transient guest tax and brought that process along. We have a much better process than we did. It's very clear now, the steps that we go through with it. And then there's this other little area called the zoo. You have a little minor interest in and support of, and certainly want to acknowledge. And also, I want to say that Councilman Schwartz serves her district well, is one of those who provides a number of nominees for the office, for the various boards and commission for the mayor's office, and we support you for that. And last, I would say, my gem of the day is Councilman Schwartz.
Well, thank you. Of course, I have some feelings to share. There are 8 feelings in life. The first one, the love of my life, most certainly is my husband Howard and my family, 2 sons, 2 daughters, their spouses, 6 grandchildren, 6 granddaughters and 4 grandsons, all of who live here in Kansas. Politics, no doubt, is hard on spouses and families. Howard has faithfully been to most of the council meetings. That's almost over 60 meetings that he's been to, or he's watched them on TV. No, that's almost 200 meetings, 60 months. So he's happy this is the last one he will attend. The honor of my life has been being a public servant for 23 years, 8 in the Kansas legislature, 10 with state agencies, and now the past almost 5 with local government. I have truly come to believe that Topeka continues to improve and thrive due to the governing body's leadership and the ability of all of us on the governing body to get along and work together to make Topeka the best it can be. The joy of my being on the council has been the making of new acquaintances and new friends and trying to help my district and the city with the many concerns there are in local government. I will miss the people, but not the difficult decisions I had to make in my votes and all those emails and phone calls. In the last 4 years, I have seen our government change to finally being controlled by the governing body and not city staff. We now have the right city staff to keep this form of government. This means the people and voters of the city are electing the leaders of Topeka who are running the city. The surprise I encountered as a council member, was the hard work that it meant. It's the hardest job I've ever had, including being a state legislator, running nursing homes, child care, the state's Public Health Association, and many state agencies that I supervised. Being a council member is a 24/7 job. The feeling of fear as a council member included being interviewed on TV, which had its pros and cons. We do have a great, I don't know where I got that knock. We do have a great media environment in Topeka. The paper, the TV, radio stations, and all the media staff of the city work hard. Fear also included not getting things done that I wanted to get done. But I did help with some changes, like the ordinances to make our air safer to breathe, and studies on police and fire. The first 2 years, I also feared we were not dealing with the most important things like jobs, crimes, and taxes. It has been wonderful to serve with these members who also have these values that I have, and to know that we have successfully not raised the mill levy in almost 3 years. I hope the new council and mayor continue that goal to run local government efficiently and without red tape. The sadness I now feel as I draw my working career to an end. But with change comes with new beginnings. I plan to stay very active with the Topeka Zoo and Kay's Garden. I will work hard to help the zoo raise money to build the gallery and event center, which will be a tranquil and serene setting as the premier wedding and conference venue of Northeast Kansas. I also started a .com that Deputy Mayor Cohen is helping me with that I believe will help people to tell their life stories and pass them on to family, friends, and admirers. Chief Justice McFarland's will be the first life story to be shared. So watch for announcements about lastinglegacyonline.com in the next year in building Kay's Garden at the Topeka Zoo. Gratitude is the last feeling I'll identify. I want to thank all my constituents in District 7, the city staff, especially my husband and family, for putting up with me as I serve the great city of Topeka, Kansas. It has been a pleasure to serve with all of you, Mayor Walgass, Deputy Mayor Cohen, Mayor-elect De La Isla, Councilwoman Hiller, Councilwoman Claire, Councilwoman Ortiz, Councilman Emerson, Councilman Jensen, and Councilman Harmon. I wish you all joy and success in the coming year. Thank you.
We have the city. The next person leaving the council is Councilwoman De La Isla. If you'll come down. She's no longer will be a member of the council. You'll learn there's a council and the mayor, and many times if there are emails that go to the council, the mayor never sees, and sometimes vice versa. But Councilman De La Isla and I go back to 2009 when we were starting the work on downtown renovation. We had Friday morning meetings that we attended, and actually that's where we first met, and we worked on those for several years. And I think that describes the role that Councilman De La Isla takes and will continue to take as a mayor, is that she feels strongly about the city of Topeka and downtown, and she has a strong voice for sometimes the underrepresented and speaks that very well. So we really look forward to you and your service. And I want to say, right after I was elected, a very good friend who is excellent in woodworking made this gavel for me. His name is Cecil Weichert, outstanding wood-making person, and it is with pleasure that I don't want to take this home. It needs to stay here and stay with you, so I pass that on to you, and with that, give you the opportunity to say some words.
Great, making me cry before I talk. Anita, can I? So, okay, I'll get like, Michelle is short for words. Mark this day. So first of all, I want to say thank you. Mayor, I think that our years got crossed. It's actually 2007, I think it was when we started working. Because I remember that when we saw the Arcus go up downtown, I'll never forget the feeling of thinking, oh my gosh, it's been 10 years. And it just feels like yesterday. And that's exactly what I could think of serving in this body. Instead of speaking of me, I just want to bring it back to you, Mayor Wolgass. Just serving alongside you has been such a distinct privilege. Richard, just sitting here and just learning from your wisdom, meeting after meeting, and you being so constant, so professional, so able to bring us all together when we had questions. Elaine, your passion and your professionalism, you are the utmost lady that sat here with us and just, helped us come through difficult situations. We've seen so much as a body. Just almost 5 years, and we've seen so much. We have a brand new city manager. We changed city attorneys. It's the list is endless, and we have been able to go through so many challenges in this community together. So I just want to say thank you to the city of Topeka. I want to say thank you to all of you. Councilwoman Hiller and Ortiz that got reelected. Yes, we get to serve together, and I will sorely miss all of you. But please know that as incoming mayor, I'm going to lean on all of you because in order for us to go ahead and keep on running our community the way that it needs to be, it's going to take all of us. So thank you for the privilege of serving you as a councilwoman, and thank you for the privilege of working alongside you.
On behalf of the city, thank you for your service as Councilwoman Ortiz. That was amazing. You get to present.
I do. Oh, wonderful. So our next celebration is for somebody that needs no introduction. He is the mayor that is known for the butterflies in the Topeka Zoo. We kind of surprised him, brought him over there talking about how we were going to have a new exhibit, and little did he know that it was because of his passion for our community and for enlisting us as a major city for butterfly work. Our mayor has been instrumental in working in downtown. It's kind of funny that Mayor is sharing as Councilman Harmon and he were having coffee, and they will go back and forth. If you don't run, I run. There were similar conversations over coffee with Mayor Wolgass. What are we going to do? How are we going to move forward the community? And what keeps on being repeated, I will never forget Matt Pavarnik's words in the celebration that we had of your leadership. And his words were, Mayor, I don't want to keep on doing this job if you're not here. And Mayor, I don't want to keep on doing this job if you're not here. And I think that exemplifies the feelings that we have. Mayor Wolgass has completely transformed the form of government in our community. We went from a strong mayor to really, truly a gentleman mayor that was very much a strong mayor because he was very strong in our community, but very much collaborative with our city manager to ensure that we had a proper transition of form of government. Mayor Wolgass is described by one simple word, class. Mayor Wolgass is class. And you have given the city of Topeka a level of dignity and leadership that we very, very, very we were hungry for and thirsty for. So thank you for your legacy. Thank you for all the great things. Thank you for the support in economic development. Thank you for keeping a council body together. I know that we can be rowdy, but you always manage to do this with so much class. So thank you so much. The city manager has a presentation that he would like to make to you. Yes.
Mayor, trying to think of something that we could do different for the city to recognize and something you to remember the time that you were here. And so what we came up with is we're going to give you a flag, and there's only one flag like it. It's the City of Topeka's flag. And on it, the council members and many of the department directors have signed this flag, and it's something you can hang up in your house.
Oh, upside down.
Thank you very much. It's hard to believe, but 5 years ago, Mayor Button was standing here in this process. So in those 5 years, they've certainly been challenging, frustrating, exciting, and that's what happens when things go change. And I think that's what we've been going through. And as Mayor-elect says, we've had a lot of things happen in the city from downtown. I think the neighborhoods are stronger. We're doing some great new things there. Our streets are being improved. We're making improvement. Our utilities are stronger. We have a better plan for them. And our zoo is now back at a premier zoo at a national level. Police, fire, we have new chiefs coming on and new changes going on. So there's just a whole revolution, in a sense, a renaissance, as we say sometimes, going on in the community. And it doesn't happen with a small group of people. At first, I compliment the council. This has been a council that reads material, knows the background, works on it, and with a collegial attitude that wasn't always there in councils. I think we've developed a way of working together that's fantastic. We have I think the departments, department heads, top management, the staff are many times the unsung people, the unsung heroes in the community. We have, 1,500 employees, but whatever, and you think we make the city go. On Saturday, when the temperature was, 5, and the wind chill was 15, I was going, or whatever it was, going across town someplace, and there was a water main break, and there were City of Topeka employees that were out there working. Okay, we're taking care of the city, and there's pride in that. And those men were there, not by choice, but probably because they wanted to be there. Of course, they're being paid, yes, but yet these are city employees that we're all part of, and we can be very proud of what they do, from fixing a water main to everyone else that works for the city. And then finally, the people with whom the elected officials have the greatest contact or report practically on a weekly basis, the city manager, Doug Trout, sometimes I get that wrong, don't I? City Manager Doug Trout, Deputy City Manager Doug Gerber, City Attorney Lisa Robertson and her entire staff, City Clerk Brenda Younger and her staff, Nikki Lee and the Finance Department, all the things that they do that we interact so closely with, that really our lives, our jobs are so important because we work with them, and they're the ones that are carrying out all these duties. So we have a near-perfect city. We're not perfect. We have things to do. We're still working on it. But we can be so proud of what we have accomplished, I think, in the last years, and it will continue. And because of all of that, I'm very proud to have been the mayor, to have served the city for 5 years. Thank you. And now we have announcements. City Manager, if you have some announcements.
Thank you, Mayor. The largest item that I want to make an announcement on is that we have narrowed our field for the next Topeka Police Chief position to 3 individuals. They put out the press release today. Dominic Rizzi Jr., William Cochran, and Samuel Dotson are our final 3 candidates. The interview process will begin on January 4th. The most important part for the community to remember is that Thursday, January 4th, from 5:30 to 7, the public is invited to come to a meet and greet at the Ramada Inn in order to have the opportunity to meet the 3 candidates and then provide their feedback to us so that we can that will provide me some additional information that I can utilize as I go forward in making my decision. So I ask that they please consider coming. Hopefully the weather will be better and we can get some good attendance for that.
Thank you. Mayor-elect Del Isla. Councilman Jensen.
A dear member of our neighborhood died last week, and I just want to send condolences out to everybody. Sally Zeller was just an incredible woman. Her husband, Don, is an amazing person. They did so much for College Hill and our community, and it was just such a travesty to lose her when we did. But she's in a better place, and I just want to send my condolences to her whole family. That's a huge loss for them.
Councilman Del Isla.
Thank you, Mayor Wilgas. In that same vein, I know that the family is interested in having a memorial. We're putting it together on Saturday. It's going to be at 10:30 in the morning at Fellowship Bible Church. It will go from 10:30 in the morning to 11:30, and it's just going to be a celebration of Sally's life. So we would love to have you there to share your stories and to hear how we celebrate Sally.
Councilwoman Schwartz. Councilman Deputy Mayor Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. You did steal some of my thunder. I was just going to say how much I really appreciate those people getting out there in the bitter cold, sloshing around in that water and trying to get those water mains back up and running. So I just really appreciate that.
Councilman Harmon.
Thank you, Your Honor. I normally don't say a lot during these public comment, but I am tonight. So bear with me. Having sat here for 12 and a half years and seen many members of the governing body come and go, and department heads come and go, the one thing I want to leave with you is somewhat of a challenge. Topeka is the economic engine of Shawnee County. Not only of Shawnee County, but the counties that are adjacent to Shawnee County. The economic development of this community is oftentimes in the hands of persons and entities other than the people sitting around this table. I would encourage you and implore the staff and the next governing body to make economic development strategies and goals an objective. And a strategy to fulfill those objectives, whether it's in East Topeka, whether it's in North Topeka, wherever. But we need to, for too long we have, and I'm including myself in this, for too long we have abdicated economic development to people outside of this room. Now, I'm not suggesting we do economic development by ourselves. It needs to be done collaboratively with the Chamber, with Go Topeka, with JADO, and with others. But it occurred to me as we were going through the Wheatfield development discussion, and the issues we had with Heartland Park, and the issues we had with College Hill, is that we have unique economic tax incentive tools that are available to us, and their use needs to be at our direction. They're our tools. They're not tools of the developer. They're tools of the governing body. And we need to be proactive in deciding where in this community we want economic development, in what areas and for what purposes, and be strategic in our use of our tax incentives to meet those objectives. And I would again encourage city manager and the staff and the next governing body to make economic development strategy an objective, and also to set clear guidelines and parameters on how those tax incentives are to be used, because they're our tools that the legislature has given us. They're not tools of the developer, they're tools of the city. And we need to take an affirmative role in implementing and developing economic strategy for this city. So thank you very much. May God be with each of you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you. What you said, what everybody said. Will you be our muse? Will you keep us on track? Thank you. Just Happy New Year. I'm looking forward to the next year coming up. And thank you all personally while we sit here for your service so far. It's been great.
Thank you. Councilwoman Claire.
Just want to thank you for your service, those that are leaving. What an honor to sit with this group of people for a short time. It was great. And thank you for your leadership. And Mayor-elect, I'm anxious to see what you can do. Thank you.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank you, and without you, there wouldn't be Miss Anita. So I'd like to thank you and Miss Anita. And without Miss Anita, there wouldn't be Noto. And without Noto, there wouldn't be a poster boy, but that's a different story. Anyway, thank you, Elaine. Without you, there wouldn't be Howard. And without Howard, I wouldn't know you. So I thank you for that. And Michelle, I'm not going to say thank you because you're going to still work. But to my colleague, Richard, who I've served with for 12 years, with some up and down challenges, some good and bad. I told him earlier I felt like we were getting a divorce. And he wanted to know who gets the kids. But it's been an honor. It's been a privilege. A lot of times when I'm up, Richard can tone me down, say, now come on, you know. But he's always been very supportive, both physically and emotionally. So I wish you well. I wish you were continuing on this journey, but you will not be forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Emerson.
I just wanted to also thank you three. It's been a great honor serving with you, and the things I've learned from you guys, seeing how it's done, seeing the amount of work all you guys put in, as Mrs. Swartz said, it's a 24/7 job, and I've really learned that in the last year and a half. And you guys have set the bar for us, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes the announcements. There's no public comment. There's no executive session, so all good things come to an end. Being no further business, we are adjourned.